Welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. We are streaming the show on the World Wide Web at www.itsrainmakingtime.com. My name is Kim Greenhouse, and I'm delighted that you're here this evening joining us. There are many of you that are listening from the United States. Thank you for listening in. Some of you are listening tonight, we know, from New Zealand and from Australia. Thank you for tuning in. And tonight's segment is on light. Everything you need to know about light. And why is that relevant to you? It's relevant, for example, about the fact that I used to take my walks at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and I found out that I'm not getting enough vitamin D into my skin, into my body, so I'm now taking my walks at 12 o'clock in the day to get sunlight into me. Or how about the fact that I found out that yellow is the worst frequency to enter the human body that disturbs the electrical system and the nervous system, and that almost 99.9% of all lighting that you and I are experiencing in both work and at home is comprised of yellow lighting. And how come, ladies and gentlemen, that you don't know that? You don't know that because you don't have the opportunity to be present with the guest we have on the show tonight, David Olszewski from the Light Energy Company, a man who has a degree in electrical and industrial engineering, who manufactures phototherapy equipment and distributes heat therapy units. He also has published on natural light, full spectrum, and phototherapy. Please welcome to It's Rainmaking Time tonight, David Olszewski, to be speaking to us about light, sunlight, and everything you need to know about light. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Kim.
Well,
that was a great run-in.
I ran through something. But I think that the first thing that I'd like to do with you is to ask you to explain to us about the sunlight and what are some of the myths and the facts about sunlight. Why are most of us scared to be in the sun today?
Oh, well, the first thing that hits you is the UV square. You know, UV, cataracts, UV, cancer, lots of scare and fear things on UV. Well, in certain areas that you mentioned, like New Zealand, that is possible. There could be a little hotter UV down there because of the lack of ozone. But the truth of the matter on UV is it's certainly much more of a problem if you don't get it. So there's the flip side of that coin. And you never really hear about that one, as you say, because everything's thrown out there about UV.
Well, you know, there are a myriad of products out there that most of us are told to purchase to block out UV, and that we've been told that UV is one of the killers, the cancer causers of being out in the sun.
And prior to the advent of our drug culture and everything else, sunlight was the primary healer in history. So what's changed? Hey, I mean, we're back here in the modern age, but the same concept holds. You know, I think the best way at this point is to give everybody a frame of reference on sunlight. You know, because this is how you measure everything about light we're going to talk about. And so it's very important to understand sunlight. So I'm going to give you a quick set of bullets about the importance of sun. Sunlight's a cornerstone of mind and body wellness, period, because on this planet, we have to have sunlight to live. The entire spectrum of natural sunlight is essential for optimum functioning of all living cells in plants, animals, and humans. It is fundamental to life. It's the second most important environmental input after food as far as controlling body functions. 98% of this stuff goes in through the eyes and 2% through the skin. The part that goes in through the skin produces your only vitamin D. And vitamin D catalyzes other crucial metabolic functions, such as the absorption of calcium. And, of course, you know, calcium plays the vital role in transmission of messages in the brain and in the competence of your immune system and the strength of your bones and the strength of your teeth. And so until the advent, as I mentioned, of antibiotics in the late 30s, the use of sunlight was essentially the area of treating tuberculosis, pneumonia, viral pneumonia, bronchial asthma, wounds, sores, ulcerations. This was all done with sunlight healing. And when on the other side, the lack of sunlight impairs the natural defensive mechanism of the body to all types of stress. And I don't care whether they're physical or emotional stress.
How do you translate lack of sunlight?
Living like I do in the northwest states where clouds cover the sky for large periods of time, so sunlight is not coming in. What happens when I'm living in Seattle and this happens? First, the competence of the immune system is lowered. Fertility goes lower. Fatigue increases.
How about depression increases?
Yeah. This is the next deal where your biorhythms change and the production of hormones and neurotransmitters change. You produce more melatonin, less serotonin. People get irritable, moody.
For those of us who are listening who are not familiar with melatonin and serotonin, which I am, but many aren't, please articulate the two.
Yeah, melatonin's produced during the dark night when you're sleeping. You should have about 8 hours of melatonin production. But then it should shut off in the morning, and when you get up and sunlight enters your eyes, it shuts down the production of melatonin, and the resurgence of serotonin starts. And so your body is used to, or should have, 8 hours of melatonin and 16 hours of serotonin. But if I don't get any sunlight today, and in the Northwest, I've had 90 days without sunlight, and then basically your body keeps producing the wrong hormone, and that's when a lot of those symptoms start occurring that I was just telling you about.
So being under the existing lighting that you're under, or all of us are under, if you're living in Seattle, equals what?
You mean the artificial light that I'm in normally?
That we're all in normally.
No, well, a lot of us that know don't use the standard artificial incandescent, halogen, and fluorescence. We use full spectrum. And so normally you should have sunlight indoors as well as outside. Well, how do you get sunlight indoors? With basically what's called full spectrum light. When you deal with incandescent, fluorescent, halogen, what you're getting is predominantly the yellow, orange, and red spectrum.
So regular light bulbs, is that incandescent?
Yeah, the type you're used to screwing in.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not only, when you're indoors under 99, as you said, 99% of our houses and buildings, is you're not only away from sunlight, but you're now in artificial light, which has a really debilitating effect on you. So it's a 1-2 whammy. I'm not getting enough of my real nourishment, and I'm spoon-fed all this yellow light. So it really is a wicked situation. Maybe for our listeners, we need to build a mental picture of sunlight so all of our conversation can relate to it. Now, sunlight, even though it's bright outside and white to most of you, or yellow, really sunlight is best shown and visualized as a rainbow. In a rainbow, you notice all the colors are there. And on one side of it, past the blue, you have the ultraviolet. And on the other side, past the red, you have infrared, which is heat. So if you can visualize a kind of a bar that shows ultraviolet, then all the colors, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, and then infrared, that's the signature of sunlight. Those are the 1,500 wavelengths that make up sunlight, and those are what enters your body. That's what goes in through your eyes. That's what metabolizes the body. That's what makes us all live. So we've grown up as a species on this planet under that. So as we talk here about the different types of light, I'm going to come back and say, it's this portion of sunlight, or it's that portion of sunlight, or it doesn't even belong in sunlight.
You told me when we spoke prior to this show that the sun has changed.
Good point. Now, let me ask you, Kim, when you were a girl, give me one color that you would have said describes the sun.
Yellow.